Hi, my name is Amber, and I'm going to introduce to you a research theory that is used in family nursing, and that is Urie Bronfenbrenner's bioecological theory, which evolved from the 70s until the early 2000s, and it has gone over a few transitions. So it's a very broad theory, but basically the premise is that the individual has 5 different systems that are constantly evolving and moving around it. So working our way out, we have micro, meso, exo, macro, and chrono. And this theory uses psychology, ecology, biology, political science, anthropology, all in one to kind of explain how a person adapts and changes over time. Some examples of microsystems would be something that's individually involved with that person, their individual family and their house. Mesosystems would be something that's not directly in there every day, but something there too often, like churches, schools, doctors, nurses, offices. Your exosystems are your extended family, legal issues, lawyers, things that come up and you see, but they're not all that frequent. And then from there, you'll have your macro systems, which involves your customs, ideologies, neighborhoods, social status. And then chronosystem is something that's constantly turning around, and those are changes over time. Those could be huge, like war, economics, death, illness, family changes, divorce, things that change. And all of these things are kind of working through over a period of time to shape an individual, how they deal with themselves in the system. So this is a synergistic approach that evolves and connects over time, which is a big thing. One of the reasons I chose this theory is because I specifically like its holistic approach. Since being a nurse, that's kind of how we view the patient anyway. I liked how you take into consideration so many things when dealing with the client and their families. There's a broad basis of analysis so that you can look from all different angles and incorporate that. And it also combines all the different sciences, which I thought was a really unique kind of way of looking at it. Some of the strengths of this theory is that it's broad, it's holistic, it considers the family and the individual always together as one, kind of circling around each other. And there also is a lot of room for further development and study, which I think is great because you can run your own studies on it all the time. Some of its weaknesses is also that it's so broad, because it's hard to analyze and quantify results. There's so many aspects of it. It's also hard to measure therapeutic adaptation. So if we use this theory to do this, how do we quantify that result? And did this intervention actually create change? So it's really, really hard to test. So in the next board presentation, we're going to talk about how it's often used, and also some research studies that I found interesting. And for the second portion of this brief presentation on such a broad theory, I just wanted to touch on how this theory is often used, or how at least I've seen it in literature. It's often used in settings with children and young adults, people going through major transitions. Some examples I've seen is pregnant adolescents, and using this for therapy, as well as adolescent soldiers. So this theory is really, mostly what I see is when people are going through stages in their lives and how they adapt to those changes. One study that I found interesting was a study involving the bioecological theory to basically evaluate fundamental motor skills in 3 different regions of Brazil. And they studied 274 children, and they used this model to kind of see how their different systems played in and how they all developed their motor skills. And what they basically concluded was that higher motor skills were seen in children that had a larger mesosystem, so sports and outside of their individual home activities, they proved to have higher motor skills. So that kind of proved like a positive idea that all these systems kind of coexist together in one person. Another one I found interesting was they used a bioecological theory of sexual harassment with girls, and how all of those systems kind of come into play with how women and girls accept sexual harassment and how men and boys kind of think it's okay. So they evaluated all these systems as well, and they came to the conclusion that all systems must be considered in order to prescribe interventions or to teach things to prevent it from happening. And that even included chronos, which chronos systems aren't often, from what I've seen, used for therapy because those are individual activities. Whereas this study says that all of them have to be used in unison to have proper interventions. I will leave the references in the link if you guys are interested. This is Spears, and this one here is by Francisco. And then briefly, I plan to use this study because the family I chose is multi-generational in one home. So we have everything from school-age children to elderly adults who are starting to lose function and dealing with a change in life and functionality of that. And I thought that this system in theory would be perfect to analyze the effects of that health change on the entire family and the systems within. So